Blog Talk Radio.
Well, hello, Divas, and welcome back to the Divas That Care Network. I am Candace Gish, and I'm the host of this program. Well, thank you so much if you've just tuned in for the very first time today. What our show is about is that our hashtag out there is Divas That Care, but we're a variety of committed women, I should say, because we now have 10 hosts on our program who are working to make the world a better place. So we have these amazing, interesting women that come on our programs, and we just love for you to get to know them, and that's what we're all about. So I'm really excited because I have a brand new guest to our Diva family. I'm going to be interviewing her today, and she is absolutely inspirational. She's an author, she's a speaker, and she's a veterinarian. So we're going to be learning a lot about her today and learning some of her journeys and her stories that she's willing to share with us today. Her name is Dr. Judy Morgan, and I'm just beyond grateful that she's going to be our guest today. So welcome to the show, Judy. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited too because just before the show we were mentioning that you've got a lot of stories, but our show doesn't have a lot of time to do all the stories that you probably could share with us today. So why don't I have you introduce a little bit about yourself today?
Okay. Well, I am a veterinarian. I've been practicing since 1984, so I'm giving away my age, which is a little scary. But when I started in practice, I was a traditional veterinarian. I was trained in the Midwest of the United States, and about 10 years into practice, I kind of discovered accidentally that there were alternative therapies available. And so the first thing that I studied was chiropractic for animals, and I was pretty blown away by that. And I said, well, if that made such a difference, then there must be other things that I can study as well. So I learned acupuncture, and I learned herbal therapy and food therapy and massage, and just so many different tools that I added to my toolbox. And at the time, I was a part owner of my first practice. And my associate, and he was the majority owner of the practice, was very mired in traditional medicine. And the funny thing is, we had bought this practice together from a holistic doctor who was practicing homeopathy. And when we bought it, we used to joke about the fact that, it's black magic, and, what is that crazy voodoo that he's doing down in that building? And then we bought it and changed it into a traditional practice. And then, here I am. I'm going down this path, and so my partner is going, oh, my gosh, you're practicing black magic, and it's voodoo, and I can't do this, and what are you doing? And he owned another practice as well. So at that point, we decided that we would part ways, and I bought out his part of the practice. And he's just like, there's just something about that building. If you're going to work in that building, you start doing all these crazy things. But, all that black magic and voodoo has developed into not only that practice, but we opened a second location in 2011, about 25 miles away. And our clients literally will drive anywhere. We have a lot of local people, but we have a lot of people that will drive anywhere from 2 to 4 hours each way, because it is very difficult to find someone willing to think outside the box and someone who's not pushing a lot of chemicals and more vaccinations and, more things that we now know are harmful to our pets. And one of my favorite parts of practice is food therapy, and I design homemade healthy diets using whole foods instead of all kinds of, chemical-laden processed foods for my patients. And so that really has kept my interest in practice alive. It has really sparked a passion in me. And my husband and I are also very involved in Cavalier King Charles Spaniel Rescue. And we work with quite a few groups. One of my favorites is Lucky Star Cavalier Rescue. They're a U.S. national group. But we take in the seniors that have a lot of health issues, because it's easier for us to deal with those health issues. And a lot of these dogs are coming from abuse or neglect situations, or, the owners have died and the animals haven't been cared for very well. And, it's our joy to take those senior pets who come in with all kinds of medical problems, turn them around, give them a good diet, give them a more holistic lifestyle. And right now we have 6 dogs in our care, the oldest of which is 18, and then we have a 17-year-old and a couple more teenagers in the group. And they just bring us joy, and they're so much fun. Our 18-year-old uses a 4-wheeled walker, and I posted a video of him when we were on a camping trip a couple of weeks ago, and my husband is walking 4 dogs on leashes out in front of him, and then back behind him is the guy in the walker running along behind.
Oh my goodness!
But they're just
so
a joy.
Cute.
so they're a joy for me.
Oh, I can I just can't I can imagine. I just want to back up a bit because oh my goodness. I just want to hit on the topic that you started doing holistic natural therapies in a lot of ways with animals before people understood what that was. Now we hear a lot about that. How was that in itself a journey? Because you were basically a trailblazer in a time when people were like, just like your old partner, this is crazy. What is she doing?
Yeah, it kind of was a little crazy at the beginning, and of course at that point I had all traditional clients coming in. So when I started doing chiropractic on their animals, and of course I would ask permission and say, well, this is what I want to do. And they would look at me like I had 3 heads. But you'd occasionally get somebody who says, oh, I go to the chiropractor. Oh, that's kind of cool. And really what started happening is that we were getting astounding results. So just because we were getting such good results, people really couldn't argue with it, and they were like, oh, wow,
yes,
that kind of works. But it's funny that you bring that up, that I was one of the early people, because it was the early 90s. I was actually featured on the cover of a veterinary journal, oh gosh, maybe around 2002 or 3. I was already doing acupuncture, maybe 3 or 4. And they basically said in there, she's a trailblazer. But she was doing holistic medicine before it was cool to do holistic medicine.
Yeah.
So
wow.
And it really was. I mean, we really were trailblazing at the time. And it's funny, my daughter rode in college on the equestrian team, and we were competing at an event in Ohio, and there was a rack of magazines, and my daughter went over, and that magazine at that point was a couple years old, and she picked it up and she said, hey, look everybody, here's my mom on the cover of this magazine.
Oh my goodness.
So that was kind of fun.
Oh, definitely. I was very lucky because in the 90s I had the opportunity. My mom had designed some lights, so we did light therapy on our dogs and our horses, and we were always doing different type of things. And she was like, "Well, this is how it works. It works because animals don't think about it. They just, they want to feel better. They love your intentions." And I just love hearing the different stories that people had in the beginning when people thought, "What are they doing?"
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy, and it's so cool to see it, like to hear that.
Yeah. So it's been a journey, and basically I just keep adding more things, and I should be winding down in practice at this point because I've been doing it for so long, but I still add new things. Just a few months ago, I attended a week-long class on hospice and senior care from an alternative medicine and traditional medicine standpoint, combining the two things, because there's always more that we can learn, and really hospice care for animals was unheard of even 5 years ago. And now it's becoming, much more mainstream. And I actually, I'm the veterinarian for a group called Monkey's House, Senior Dog Hospice and Sanctuary. And it's one of my clients who had a dream. Her dog died, and she said, it was a senior dog she'd adopted from the shelter, and she said, I want to do something in his name, and his name was Monkey. So she said, I'm going to open Monkey's House, and it's going to be a senior sanctuary, and we're going to rescue old dogs from shelters, that from high kill shelters where they've just been abandoned. Either they were stray or their owners died, or however they ended up there. And we have criteria. In order for the animals to get in there, they can't just be old. They have to be old and given a death sentence. A death sentence. They've got cancer, they've got kidney failure, they have liver failure, whatever it is. And so we have brought in over the past 3 years, probably close to 100 dogs. And we do whatever they need.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's amazing. And they all live in her house, which is even more amazing. So
really?
she generally has about 25 on site at any time. Some of them are in permanent foster care with other people. But we pay all the medical bills for them. And so if they need surgery for their cancer or whatever, we handle that. every diet is designed individually for each individual dog. So when she puts out 25 meals in the morning and at night, it's 25 different meals because they are individualized, just like you would for a person
Yes.
who was ill. And actually, frankly, I wish that the human doctors would spend more time on nutrition and,
Yes.
I have family members with illnesses, and it's just like, if you would spend some time on nutrition, you could really improve their quality of life. But it has made a huge difference for these dogs. And, we've had dogs that were given a death sentence, and we were told, oh, well, he's got 2 days to live, he's in kidney failure, you should just kill him. And a year later, we're still sitting there with the dog going, well, it looks pretty good to me. So, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
And you guys have dedicated your lives to this in a lot of ways, or haven't you? Your friend and then you being a part of this. This is just fantastic. I want to hear more stories like that. More, more states, more provinces, more places that have amazing amazing people like yourself that are doing that, because we do that. We find a lot of people that if their animal is getting older, they just abandon them. And I always thought, why are these animals at these shelters when they must have had families, and now they don't? And do you see? Obviously, you must see a lot of that then.
We do, and part of the problem is when they're seniors, their medical bills start to go up. And you may have gotten away with not doing a whole lot for the first 10 years, but then all of a sudden, that poor quality care catches up. Or you've been following the advice of your traditional doctor and getting vaccinations every year, even though we know they're not needed every year, using all the flea and tick chemicals. We've become a society that everybody wants that quick fix. So it's like, oh my God, I saw a flea, let me drown him in something or give him a pill that's, an oral insecticide. And, so you do that for 10 years, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there faced with, wow, this is a big mess. And oh my gosh, it's going to cost me a lot of money to fix this. Well, I don't want to be a part of that. And I think that we're teaching our children things that are not very good with that. And I look at small children, and you drop their pet off at the shelter. A lot of parents lie about that, by the way. Or you say he ran away from home or whatever. But, I think we're sending a message that, when you get old, you're expendable. And I would like to caution folks, if you're doing that and that's what you're setting for your children, what are they going to think when you get old and you cost money and you need care and you need your diapers changed?
Exactly.
Well, can we drop them? Well, actually, we do. We drop them off at the nursing homes. I think it's sad.
Yeah.
I live with my parents. My senior parents live in my house.
Well, thank goodness for that, huh?
Yeah.
They probably really appreciate that.
They do.
I want to ask you too. For any of our listeners, because we do have listeners around the globe now, do you have a website? Do you do online things with people that are wanting more information, that they want to talk to you? Is there something that you're doing out there?
Yeah,
Media?
absolutely. So my website is very simple, drjudymorgan.com, drjudymorgan.com. I have thousands of blogs, articles, videos on YouTube, Facebook, and on my website. I have 4 books that I've written, which are all on my website as well as on Amazon. And I do a Facebook Live show almost every single morning. I was in Costa Rica last week, and I didn't have good internet, so we didn't do it. But my Facebook is Judy Morgan DVM, as in Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. So Judy Morgan DVM. Anybody can join the page. And I do educational Facebook Live. Sometimes we're philosophical, but mostly educational, every morning. And so anybody around they're at 8 a.m. Eastern on the weekdays and 9 a.m. Eastern on the weekends. But there's probably 1,000 of them that are archived on my Facebook page, and so you can just I'm not great about tagging them, but you can kind of look through them, and most of them have titles on them. If you're looking, and I would say to someone, if you have and I also do phone consultations or Skype consultations, but if you have a certain problem with your pet and you're looking for an answer, Google my name, Dr. Judy Morgan, and then whatever the problem is. So if it's inflammatory bowel disease or vaccines or natural flea and tick prevention, if you put my name and Google whatever the problem is, if I've written or done a video on anything on that topic, it'll pop up.
Oh, that is fantastic. And for any of our listeners that have been with us for a while, you know that I post a lot of our stuff on social media. So I will be putting these links up there too, so that you can have another copy of that. That is it's absolutely exciting because that's what we want, is that we want that information, and to have somebody as amazing as you providing that for us, it's just a win-win situation. So, thank you so much for all that you're doing out there, Dr. Judy.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I won the 2018 Woman of the Year in the Pet Industry Award, and also a Woman of Influence from Pet Age magazine for 2019. But frankly, I was nominated for them because I am so willing to share information. There's a lot of people who don't have a lot of money, and can't. Consultations with me are not cheap because I have a big backlog. But they are available. But for people who can't afford that and just need information, that's why we have the books. That's why we have the blogs. That's why we have the videos. Because I feel like everyone needs to. There are places where they don't have regular veterinary care, let alone holistic veterinary care. So anybody who has internet access should still be able to get information.
Well, that's fantastic, and thank you so much, because I'm going to be posting this in all of our social media, because I think there's a lot of our listeners are very passionate about animals. So we want them to get that information and help their animals out, and perhaps pass it on to the family and friends that they have that would benefit from this information too.
Absolutely. I mean, my goal a few years ago, I said my goal was to change the lives of 1 million animals worldwide, and I think I said that about a week before New Year's Eve, and on New Year's Eve I had a post that reached over 1 million people, and so I said, well, that job's done. So we changed it to 10 million.
Congratulations! That's a huge accomplishment.
It was.
I love that.
It was pretty fun. And, it's one of those things where you set an intention, and it's just like, I'm going to reach 1 million animals. And then, 2 days later, I went, now what?
You did it. Now you have to do something bigger and better, right? Oh, wow.
Exactly. So go big or go home, I guess.
Well, now I'm going to kind of branch off into something that you and I have talked about before the show started. And, you've had a lot of challenges. A lot of our listeners are like, wow, this woman is doing so much, and she's doing. But along the way, your journey has had its hiccups, its ups and downs, just like all of us. And, and that's one of the things I like to stress here at the Divas That Care. All these women, they're real women. These women have challenges. They have things that they go through. And I want to, if you're willing, can you kind of share, highlights to share with our Divas today on the challenges that you've faced in order to get where you are today?
Sure. Well, let me just say I'm a serial entrepreneur. And I didn't start out that way. I'm not sure where that came from. My mother was a school teacher, and my dad was a salesman. But I'm a serial entrepreneur. And for anybody who wants to read the whole story, there's a blog that my daughter wrote on buildingbusinessesusa.com, where she goes through the whole thing. But when I bought out my partner and bought the practice, I know how to practice veterinary medicine, but no one ever gave me a business course about anything. And so suddenly I was the one, in charge of the books and, making money, and I saw all this money coming in, and I spent it. I spent it really well. And at the end of the first year, I kind of went, oh my gosh, I haven't taken a salary in 6 weeks. I am working my butt off 80 hours a week in this practice. I'm not taking any money. And I said, something's wrong. I don't know. I obviously don't know what I'm doing. So I ended up hiring a business consultant. And let me just say, for those of you who are, struggling with your own businesses, hire a consultant, hire a mentor, find someone who can help you. So I hired these consultants. I spent $35,000 on them, and I had no money, and I hadn't taken a salary, but I had a credit card with that limit on it. And I said, okay, well, I'm going down in flames, or I'm turning this around. And literally within 2 months, I had paid off the $35,000. I turned the practice around, but in the process, I also found that I had an embezzling office manager. So obviously she went out the door. And by the way, they don't get prosecuted, and you don't ever get your money back. It's they gave her a slap on the wrist and said, "Be good from now on." And I went, "Thanks." but that did help us turn things around, and it's one of those things where you can dwell on that forever, or you can say, okay, well, let me put some safeguards in place. Let me obviously put people that I can trust in place, and let me learn how to run a business. So I did. And, then a few years later, we opened our second practice. And so I had never done that. I had never started anything from the ground up. We made mistakes along the way, but we managed to do it. And, 9 years later, we're still rolling. So, and then I wrote my first book, which was, again, kind of accidental. Somebody said to me, you should, it was on a Facebook page, and somebody said, you should write all this information down somewhere so that we have access to it. And I went, maybe I'll write a book. And I said it as a joke. And 15 months later, my first book was published, which is called From Needles to Natural. And it did really well. And I went, But I also learned that in order for a book to do well, you have to go out and promote it. Like, it just doesn't, I was kind of like, I'll write a book and everybody will buy it and I'll be a millionaire and it'll be great. It doesn't work that way. So I hired people. So I hired people to teach me how to sell books and how to promote myself. And that is, frankly, how all of my social media started, and that's how my speaking career started, which I absolutely love public speaking. And I'm going to be in Ontario, in Cobourg, in Ontario, Canada, May 25th. That is posted on my website. I'll be in Georgia in September. But we go all over the place for speaking. But that's how that started, because I needed to promote my book. And then I enjoyed that so much, I wrote my second, third, and fourth books, which are all cookbooks for dogs for healing your pets with whole food, whether they have kidney disease, liver disease, whatever. So that's how that all got started. And then somewhere along the way, in getting some social media posts, I had done a bunch of interviews at a conference. And I interviewed a man from New Zealand who makes deer antler velvet supplements, which there's a lot of benefits to deer antler velvet. And, when I interviewed him, I was kind of like, okay. But he started calling me a couple of months after we did the video, and I thought, this guy's crazy. I don't want to talk to him. He's just mad at me because I never posted his video because it didn't come out very well. Ended up, he wanted me to be the face and the name of deer antler velvet products with my own branding here in the United States. And I said, I don't know how to do that. I've never done that. I've never brought a product to market. I don't know how to do that. I know how to practice veterinary medicine. And sort of kind of getting the handle on running a business. So I told him no. And I told him no 8 times. And on the 9th time, I finally said, fine, I'll do it because you just won't go away. And so that launched our, it was, and I didn't know what I was doing. We call it stumbling forward. It was just like, I don't know what to do with this. But I can now tell you, we've been at it for about 3.5 years. That product line is now a $500,000 business. And I had no intentions of ever starting this, but it's kind of one of those, you put yourself out there and you be open to possibilities, and then once you accept the challenge of the possibility, then you need to give it your all, and you need to move forward,
yes.
Fast-paced. And you will make mistakes. When I put my products on Amazon, I hired a company to teach me how to sell on Amazon. They ended up being scam artists, and $75,000 invested into them. We found out that they were scam artists. The FTC shut them down and took $33 million away from them. So I was just a little part in that cog. Yeah. So, but we just kept, my husband and I just kept moving forward. We look at all these challenges and we're like, okay, well, that was a big loss. We didn't really want to take that big loss, but we took that big loss, and we just need to, get over it and move forward and make this work. And I think that sometimes when you're up against the wall and you're like, holy crap, I just lost, a couple years worth of savings on that deal and it didn't get me anywhere. Well, how are you going to recoup that? How are you going to move forward? Or are you just going to sit there and cry in your bucket and say, oh my gosh, it's all their fault? No, it's not all their fault. It was my fault because I fell for it, and accept responsibility and just move forward.
Wow. And can I stop you right there, Dr.
Yeah.
Judy? Wow, that in itself, you saying that, taking responsibility, because how many of us don't do that? How many of us, they got me again, or I'm like, yeah, we have to own it. And it's something I share with my daughters all the time too. I said, you know what, you need to own that. You know, things happen, you know, we move on. But if you don't own that situation that you were just in, then you're never going to learn from it, and you're never going to grow and be better. And
exactly.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners.
Hey, it's all fun and games.
Isn't it?
I don't know. I just keep looking at my kids and going, I don't know whether I'm going to have anything to leave to you or not, because we'll just see what happens. But it's okay, because my kids are actually involved in my the business. My son runs my website, and I'm actually selling my online stores to him eventually, because you know he's the computer guru and he can handle all this stuff. But he's been incredibly helpful, and I would not be where I am without his help. So
yeah.
you know, it's nice to have people that you can call on when you're kind of stuck or your website is, you know, blowing up, and you kind of go, honey, help.
That's exactly it. And somebody you trust, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And he travels all over the world. He's a broadcaster for esports gaming. And, you know, so he can be in Croatia or South Korea, and I can, you know, send him a quick text, help fix this right now, and he can do it from anywhere. So that's incredibly important.
That is awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, you know, I just want to say thank you so much for taking your time today. I hope, Dr. Judy, that you come back on our show and you speak again with me and you know, share more stories for our listeners, because I absolutely had a great time today and I learned so much, and I'm just beyond excited to check out your Facebook Lives. I'm going to be posting about this right away here, so that all of our other tribe can get to know you better, because I think this is so much fun and they're going to learn so much.
Well, thank you. Now all my dirty laundry's been aired, so.
Yes, just a little bit. No. I would like to ask you, is there any last-minute tips, tools, things you'd love to share with our listeners?
Okay, so for, you know, entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, I give an entrepreneurial scholarship at our high school every year. And, you know, what I would say to you is don't give up, and don't be afraid, even when things that you think are bad happen. It doesn't mean you're bad or you're stupid or you don't know what you're doing. It means you learn something from that experience. You know, I got embezzled by my office manager. Believe me, I have safeguards in place now. I have people that I trust, and it was an expensive learning situation, but it was a learning situation. And so I look at that with, you know, every stumbling block along the way. And even with my patients, you know, if I have a patient whose outcome is not what I expected it to be, or they're not doing as well as I'd like them to be doing, you know, it's a learning opportunity. It's a chance to say, what can we do differently? What can we do better? How can I do this differently with the next patient that has something similar? It's always, you know, there's a great book out that I just finished called Mindset, and it's all about having that growth mindset instead of that fixed mindset. The fixed mindset will tell you I'm stupid or I'm dumb or I'm smart or I'm a genius, but it gives labels to things instead of saying, what did I learn and how can I move forward from that? So I would just encourage people to always, you know, you can be upset, angry, sad, cry, whatever for a couple of minutes, but, you know, from that point, put on your big girl panties and say, okay, what do I do next? And move forward, because there's always an outcome and a solution that, you know, can be better.
That is a perfect way to end the show. Wow. Thank you. I love it. Well, you know what? As I said, it was a pleasure. I can't wait to have you back on our show in the future. And I want to thank you again for being my guest today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to all of our amazing listeners. It's because of you that we've continued to do this show now for 9 years. And we love finding these amazing women to come on our show. So if you would like to be a guest on our show, please let us know, and we will book you in. Thank you again to Dr. Judy, and thank you to all of our listeners. And make sure that you check out our other shows at divasthatcare.com. Until next time, I hope that everybody has a great day and that you do something kind for somebody soon. All right, bye-bye.